At my brother's launch party, my mother raised a framed certificate, a gift from all of US. I looked closer. It was the studio I bought in full. My father leaned in. "You've got 30 days to vacate." I smiled. "One day's enough." By sunrise, the sound booth was gone. By night, my brother texted, "Is this a joke?" I said, "Not yet, but tomorrow's delivery might be." I didn't even know about the party until my cousin Darnell texted me a guilt-soaked, "You coming tonight?" followed by a thumbs-up emoji like that would soften the blow. I hadn't been invited. Not officially, anyway. No message, no call, nothing. But I went. Of course I went. My name's Curtis. I'm 41. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've been working in sound engineering since I was 22, long enough to know when I'm being played. And this was a setup from the start. The venue was a rented-out rooftop spot downtown, sleek, pretentious, with LED signs that read things like "Follow your vibe." When I walked in, nobody said anything, but a few cousins gave me that look. The wide eyes, the stiff smiles. Like they'd seen a ghost they were hoping wouldn't show up. My younger brother, Devin, was the center of attention, surrounded by folks slapping him on the back and saying things like, "Next big thing," and "Knew you had it in you." I just stood near the bar, arms crossed, and waited. Because if I learned anything from years of dealing with this family, it's that they never disappoint when it comes to disappointment. Eventually, my father raised his glass and tapped it with a spoon. "Y'all, if I could have your attention for a quick moment, just a minute, I promise." He gave his church elder smile. Tonight ain't just about celebrating Devin's new deal with that label. It's also about recognizing hard work and investing in future greatness. Everyone clapped. Devin grinned and put his arm around his partner, Maya. They looked like some polished R&B duo plucked straight from a Spotify thumbnail. Dad gestured toward a covered easel. "We wanted to give you something to start this next chapter right." My mother stepped forward and pulled the cloth off like it was game show night. It was a framed certificate. The crowd leaned in. I didn't need to. I already knew what it was. Deed of ownership. The top read. And below, the name of my studio, followed by Devin's and Maya's names in freshly inked font. Cheers erupted. My cousin whistled. Maya's mouth dropped open in shock. Devin froze, then broke into a boyish grin and hugged my parents. I didn't move. "Fully outfitted space in the warehouse district," Maya said, reading over someone's shoulder. "That place is incredible." "It's a gift," my father said, voice booming. "From all of us. Family investing in family." People looked around like they expected to see me smiling too. I walked over, nice and slow, past the cluster of relatives who couldn't meet my eyes. I stopped right in front of the easel and stared at the paper I already knew by heart. Not because I designed it, because I'd signed it 5 years ago, when I bought the space outright with cash from a licensing deal that nobody here had even congratulated me for. My father leaned in close. He smelled like cologne and confidence. "You've got 30 days to vacate," he whispered. I looked at him, just looked. Then I smiled, nodded once, and said, "1 day's enough." His smile faltered. I turned, walked through the crowd like I wasn't even there, and left without saying another word. Let them celebrate. Tomorrow was coming. By 6:30 the next morning, I was parked outside the studio with a black coffee in one hand and a clipboard in the other. The contractor crew I'd called the night before, for guys I'd worked with during the original build-out, showed up right on time. "Morning, Curtis," the lead, Marcus, said, nodding. "You sure about this?" I handed him the clipboard. "Everything tagged in red goes. Everything not nailed down gets boxed. Anything they brought in, toss it in the bin." He gave me a long look but didn't argue. We'd worked together enough for him to know I wasn't doing this out of spite. This was correction. The studio sat on the second floor of a repurposed warehouse, open beams, soundproofed walls, floating floors. I'd built it from the bones up, every piece of gear bought, not least, every fixture chosen by me. It was mine, until my brother moved in temporarily last spring. Rehearsals at first, then sleepovers, then toothbrushes, baby monitors, branding on the front door. They called it the lab, like they'd invented it. The front desk still had a glass jar of lollipops Maya put there for vibes. I dumped it in the trash. Room by room, we peeled everything away. The signature walnut desk I custom built, dismantled and loaded. My personal interface rack, dual Mac Pros, and analog compressors, packed into cases, labeled, logged. Even the sound dampening foam, the stuff Devin had tried to redecorate with gold-plated acoustic panels, came down. Carefully, every triangle removed and boxed. By noon, Maya's bassinet setup in the booth was gone. By 2 o'clock, Devin's vision board wall, all record label dreams and vision quotes, was stripped bare. The only thing I left was the bamboo floor. Not out of kindness, just long enough for him to see me peel that up too. "You serious about the floor?" Marcus asked. "Dead serious. They didn't pay for it." He nodded. "You want it boxed?" "Nope," I said, "wrapped and labeled. Deliver it to their address." With a bow, he smirked. Petty, practical. By 4 p.m., the place was clean. Not sparkling sterile, cold, the way it had been before they moved in. I stood at the door one last time and clicked off the lights. On my way out, I got a text. "Devin, is this a joke?" I stared at it for a second, then typed back, "Not yet, but wait for tomorrow's delivery." Hit send, walked to my truck. They thought they could carve out my legacy and hand it over as a gift. They forgot who built it in the first place. Back then, before all this, The studio was just mine, a bare warehouse space with terrible lighting and too much echo, but I saw it for what it could be. I spent 2 years building it in pieces, nights after gigs, weekends in overalls, slowly transforming it into the one place where I could breathe. No family obligations, no drama, just sound, just work, just mine. Then Devin showed up. He'd just gotten laid off from a food delivery job and said he needed a quiet place to figure things out. He called it temporary. "You mind if I crash at the studio for a couple nights?" he asked one Sunday. I didn't say yes. I said, "I guess." He showed up the next morning with a gym bag and a ring light. By the end of the week, Maya was there too, playing assistant, humming hooks into her phone, calling it a creative rebirth. Then came the gear. Not good gear. Cheap Amazon speakers and a neon sign that said Studio Stars. I walked in one day, and they were live on Instagram, giving a studio tour. The caption read, "Welcome to our lab. Dreams begin here." I didn't say anything. Not the first time. Not even when I caught Devin updating the studio's Google business page, adding his name under ownership, like he'd been there from the start. I told myself I was just being sensitive, that I could share. But it didn't stop. They printed posters with their logo, and hung them without asking. Maya painted one of the sound panels lilac for softness. Devin installed some ugly black light strips in the hallway. I came in one night after a client session and found a literal crib in the corner booth. For their baby, I should have drawn a line. Instead, I bought a mini fridge to keep the milk cold. It wasn't just the space they took. It was the credit. They started calling it their project, talking like they built the walls, laid the wiring, paid the fire inspector. Meanwhile, I was out here paying utilities for a room I couldn't even book on my own calendar anymore. And the family? They loved it. "Devin's finally growing up," Maya said. That studio really gave him purpose. No one asked who gave him the studio. They saw me as the older brother with no kids, no wife, and too many wires in his brain. The one who always worked. The one who always paid. And I did pay. For years. Over $200,000 in quiet loans and family bailing out. My father's back surgery. My mother's mortgage top-off. Devin's car. Maya's dental bridge. Never repaid. Never even properly acknowledged. Just expectation disguised as gratitude. I used to tell myself that silence was peace. That letting things go made me the bigger person. But now I realize they used my silence like a permission slip. They filled my quiet with their noise and called it progress. The day they unveiled that gift was just the final page of a book they'd been writing for years and signing my name to without my consent. That night, after the party, I sat in the empty studio parking lot with the engine running and the doors unlocked. The silence in the cab felt different now. Not heavy, just final. They thought I was the quiet one. But they forgot. Sound is my entire profession. And I was done letting people speak over me. The next morning, I sat in my kitchen with a legal pad and 3 black binders. Labeled tabs, printed receipts, notarized contracts, even timestamped screenshots. Every invoice, every email, every dime that touched that studio was tracked. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. The folder I built was called Correction. Not evidence, not lawsuit, just correction. At noon sharp, a moving company pulled up outside the warehouse space. Not just any company, one I personally vetted. Professional, discreet, and quiet. They wore navy jumpsuits. No logos. No questions. The boxes they carried were custom-made. Matte black, thick cardboard, neatly labeled in white ink. Box 1, pretend ownership. Box 2, social capital. Box 3, entitlement. Each one was packed with what they'd left behind, their gold-plated wall lights, their selfie ring, their laminated quote board that read, "Hustle and Harmony." Every item wrapped, cataloged, and labeled. Like a museum exhibit of delusion. Each box also contained a sealed envelope. "Please see enclosed guide," suggested placement and framing. I wrote it myself, printed on thick paper. Inside, a cheeky inventory sheet and a short note that read, "You mistook kindness for permission. This box contains the items you brought, the roles you invented, and the ownership you assumed. Thought I'd help you begin again, properly this time." At 2:17 p.m., a private courier delivered the boxes to Devin and Maya's apartment, complete with delivery confirmation, signature, and security footage. They opened the door in gym clothes. Confused, I watched the whole thing from my phone. They looked at the labels, picked up the envelope. Devin turned it over like he was afraid it might explode. Maya started to say something, then stopped. They stood in the doorway, staring down at 3 black boxes on their welcome mat, like ghosts from a party they forgot to clean up after. Neither one smiled. No yelling, no outrage. Just 2 people realizing, all at once, that the fantasy was over. I didn't record audio. I didn't need it. The footage was enough. Watching them read the box labels, that was the closure. Later that night, I got a single text from Devin. "What is this supposed to mean?" I didn't answer. He had the answer. I left no gaps. No ambiguity. I didn't call him out in public or threaten legal action. I didn't scream, or cry, or ask anyone to take sides. I just boxed up their illusion and hand-delivered it back to them, labeled and sorted, with timestamps and packing slips. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a correction. And next came the reckoning. They asked me to dinner like it was nothing. Like the past 2 weeks hadn't happened. Like my studio hadn't been turned into a party favor and returned to me in pieces. "Let's just talk." My sister texted. "Family needs to sit down. Clear the air." I didn't reply at first. Then my mother followed up with, "Just one evening, Curtis." a calm one. The place they picked was called Low Note, a jazz-themed bistro in East Nashville. Warm lights, brass fixtures. The kind of place you go when you're trying to seem classy but not too desperate. I showed up 10 minutes early, wearing all black. I brought 3 things: a flash drive, a sealed manila folder, and a laminated notice. My mother stood when she saw me. She looked tired, dressed in something beige and wrinkled, like she hadn't wanted to be there either. My father nodded, but didn't smile. Devin and Maya were already seated, arms crossed, eyes low. No greetings, no hugs, just tension. We ordered drinks. Then they started. My mother led with the tears. "You're still part of this family, Curtis." Devin followed with confusion. "I don't even know what's going on, man. You just flipped." Then Maya, soft-voiced, "We didn't mean to hurt you. You never said anything." I didn't respond right away. I waited until the waiter left our table with the empty breadbasket. Then I reached into my coat and laid the flash drive on the table. "This has copies of all studio contracts," I said, calmly. "Title, equipment receipts, property taxes, everything in my name." I set down the manila folder. "This is a breakdown of every financial transfer I've made to family since 2016. Totals over $200,000. It's categorized by person and year. Red tabs are unpaid. Yellow tabs are duplications." My father stared at it like it was radioactive. Finally, I placed the laminated sheet in front of them. Large font, simple wording, notice of financial and legal separation. My voice stayed level. "As of this week, I've removed myself as co-signer on Dad's truck and your credit card," I said, looking at my mother. "I've closed the joint medical account. The college fund I created for Devin Jr. is now frozen pending a third-party trustee." My sister blinked fast. "Wait, what? You're no longer listed on my insurance plan," I added. "None of you are." Maya whispered something to Devin. He didn't move. "I've mailed certified copies of everything," I continued. "You'll each receive your own packet within 2 days." "You can't do this," my father said flatly. "I already did." Silence. Not a dramatic one. Not the type that comes after yelling. Just a steady, stunned pause that spread across the table like fog. "You think this is fair?" my mother said softly. "After everything we've been through?" "No," I said. "I think it's overdue." No one touched their food. I stood up slowly, took one last look at the table, and said, "This was never about money. It was about clarity." Then I walked out, leaving the folder, the flash drive, and the laminated truth behind, all of it clean, organized, and final. They had called it a dinner to talk. I turned it into the last meeting they'd ever need. The group chat was renamed Support Circle sometime in early October. No announcement, no explanation, just a quiet rebrand. Like that alone would erase everything that happened. Nobody spoke in it. My cousin Darnell was the only one still sending me updates. Not because he took sides. Darnell didn't do sides. He just watched, observed, took screenshots and sent them without comment. First came the cryptic Facebook quotes. My sister posted, "Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who say nothing at all." Maya shared a picture of a sunset with the caption, "We rise by lifting others, even when they betray us." Then my father chimed in with an old photo of Devin and me as kids, standing in front of a busted boombox. The caption read, "Some things change, some don't. Blood is still blood." It was all performative, like they were trying to rewrite the story for public consumption. But Darnell's screenshots told the real version. My mother now worked part-time at the community center library, shelving DVDs and checking out binders full of aging tax paperwork. Darnell snapped a blurry pic of her behind the counter, wearing a volunteer badge even though she wasn't volunteering. "They make you wear it when you're hourly," he said. Dad traded in the new truck for a used Altima. Still tells people it's a limited edition. My sister moved in with her boyfriend's cousin, a guy who ran a sneaker resale business from his garage. Darnell overheard her arguing on the porch about who forgot to buy diapers. And Devin? He threw a home studio warming party. I only knew because Darnell sent photos. Plastic streamers, dollar store speakers, a ring light. He stood beside Maya, holding up a USB mic and smiling like it was some kind of prize. The caption was "New Beginnings, built with love." No one was fooled. They cobbled the gear together with online returns and borrowed laptops. The soundproofing was yoga mats nailed to the wall. The coffee table was a shipping pallet with a poster taped on top. They lit a candle for ambience. The only guests were 2 old friends from high school and a DJ who showed up late and left early. Darnell wrote under one screenshot. Dev tried to freestyle over his own beat and knocked the mic over. Didn't even notice. I didn't laugh. I didn't gloat. It wasn't funny. It was just sad. Every one of them had leaned on me quietly, consistently for years. And now that I was gone, they weren't crumbling, but they weren't standing either. They were slumping, sliding, holding it together with duct tape and denial. The group chat sat dead, just an empty shell with the name Support Circle like some sick punchline. I left the group officially 2 weeks later. No announcement, no message. Just clicked, leave conversation, and let the silence take over. Darnell didn't text me after that. He understood. This wasn't exile. It wasn't punishment. It was subtraction. I hadn't cut them off. I'd removed myself from a loop where I was never supposed to speak, only supply. Now the only soundtrack was silence. And for the first time, it didn't ask for anything. I took my time with the rebuild. There was no dramatic reveal. No watch me now moment. Just quiet mornings and focused hands. I started with the walls. Stripped them bare. Peeled back every sticker. every bit of residue left behind from Devon's brand. The paint had yellowed in spots, like it had been holding its breath. I let the space exhale. Then I installed new acoustic panels. Dark gray, smooth. I didn't want color this time. I wanted stillness. The kind that doesn't perform. The floor came next. I picked natural wood maple with a matte finish. It felt soft underfoot, like it wasn't trying to impress anyone, just hold its place. I painted the ceiling a deep, flat gray, the kind of shade that eats glare, that lets the light land gently. Everything in that room now had one job: clarity. No ring lights, no affirmation posters, no hashtags on the walls, just quiet. One afternoon, I drove out to a supplier warehouse across town, the kind of industrial place where no one bothers you and every aisle smells like varnish and cardboard. I was looking for cable racks and maybe a new drafting table. That's when I met her. She was crouched near a stack of kiln shelves, scribbling on a notepad with a stub of pencil. Overalls, sleeves rolled, hair tied back like someone who worked with her hands. She looked up at me like I'd walked into a question she hadn't asked yet. "You know the difference between mid-grade and fire-safe plywood?" she asked. I blinked, then shrugged. "In soundproofing, it's the difference between solid and smoky." She laughed once. "In ceramics, it's the difference between safe and smoke inhalation." Her name was Sam, short for Samantha, but no one called her that unless it was legal paperwork. She was building a clay studio 3 units down from where I bought cables. Said she liked working at night, when no one was around. We talked about materials first: wood grain, temperature control, epoxy. Then about space, not just square footage, but how some places feel louder even when they're quiet. She never asked about the past. She didn't want the details. Only nodded when I said, had to take something apart before I could rebuild it. That was enough. We saw each other a few times after that. First over bolts and brackets, then coffee and to-go cups while standing over a dusty blueprint. By December, she'd invited me to see her studio. It smelled like clay and patience. She'd carved little grooves into the windowsills with her thumb, absent-minded, but deliberate. The whole space felt lived in, not for show. I like that. Back at my place, the studio was finally whole again. I didn't hang awards on the walls. No platinum plaques or framed check stubs. Just tools, racks, my gear, my pace. The sound was better than it had ever been. Not just the acoustics, the feeling. One night, Sam stood in the middle of the room, her hands in the pockets of her sweatshirt, looking around. "This place feels like it earned its silence," she said. I nodded. So did I. By spring, we were expecting. I didn't make a big deal out of it. No announcement posts. No clever baby-themed playlists. Just a soft plan for crib placement near the lounge area, and a note to myself to re-insulate the vocal booth, not for recording, for naps. The studio wasn't just a workplace anymore. It had become a life space. Not loud, not flashy, just real. And finally, fully mine. I found out through a photo, not sent to me, not posted by anyone I followed. It was forwarded by Darnell, of course quiet as ever, but still keeping an eye on things I no longer cared to. The picture was grainy, probably snapped on someone's old phone. A folding table with a burnt ham resting in a foil tray. Plastic chairs. Dollar store napkins still in the wrapper. Someone had written FAM on a paper plate in Sharpie. No tags. No location. No mention of me. But I knew what it was. Thanksgiving. The first one without me. Darnell didn't add any comment. He didn't need to. The photo said enough. You could see the cracks. My mother had a towel draped over her shoulders, probably doubling as an apron. My father sat off to the side, hunched over a paper cup. Devon looked older somehow, like someone had turned the saturation down on him. Maya was smiling, but only with her mouth. No lights, no music, no scene. Just a gathering shaped like a family, held together with whatever was still within reach. I didn't feel satisfied, not bitter either. Just done. That same week, I got an email. The sender line said Devon A. The subject line, "Let's forgive." For the baby. No salutation. No explanation. Just a short paragraph about how life was hard, and family was family, and how we shouldn't let ego raise our kids apart. He signed it. "Still your brother." I stared at it for a while. Then I forwarded it to myself, opened the file, and renamed it. Final act. I didn't reply, didn't call, didn't share it with Sam. I just dragged it into a folder labeled Archive and closed my laptop. There wouldn't be a court case. No lawyers. No retaliation. That wasn't what this was. That was never the point. The silence was the point. That night, I sat alone in the studio. Lights low, monitors off, no sessions, no deadlines. The room was quiet, not because it was empty, but because it was right. For years, I used to dread silence. Fill it with background noise, endless tweaking, late-night edits, loops that never ended. Anything to avoid hearing nothing. Now, the quiet wasn't a threat. It was a choice. It didn't ache anymore. It resounded. I leaned back in my chair, placed a hand over the soft swell of the baby's blanket, still folded on the side desk. Sam had left it earlier, just checking fit for the cradle shelf. I could still smell the faint trace of clay on it. I closed my eyes. No more noise. No more performance. Just the steady, measured breath of a space that had finally been reclaimed. I didn't need them to apologize. Didn't need them to understand. All I ever wanted was the freedom to build something real, something that didn't depend on being liked or included or praised. And I'd built it, quietly, completely. Finally,